Hi everyone, I'm Kitsune. Thanks for joining me today as I talk to the infamous, the legendary Zero X Burden. We end up having a really fun conversation where, to be honest, I spend most of my time laughing like a fucking idiot while Burden says very smart and very insightful things. If you want to listen to more, please consider subscribing on Spotify or Apple Music or wherever you find podcasts. I'll see you next week. I didn't actually want to do a podcast, or I didn't think about doing a podcast. I was just going to like audio record people. And then Carnation tweeted out, like, you got to get on this Untitled podcast. And I started getting all these DMs like, when are we doing this podcast? And I was like, I have a podcast now. Fantastic. I've achieved like peak, like entitled, like male mindset of like, I deserve to have a podcast. I finally did it.
I think everyone deserves an audience to some degree, even if I don't like it. But I'll talk trash about. Oh yeah, I'll talk trash about the people starting up podcasts to talk about sports or whatever.
Yeah.
Just see mindless.
I mean, the most dangerous thing in the world is like three mediocre white men in a room with a microphone who are just like, we are so fucking funny. We're the funniest people.
It is. It's the worst. But at the same time, I consume content just like that, right? Like almost that exact formula. But if they're talking about, Bigfoot or aliens, stuff like that, I'm all over it. You know what I mean? That kind of stuff is my bread and butter. Like I may be known now for the crypto's currency space, but maybe one day I'll be in the cryptozoology space,
This is I went to the Museum of Cryptozoology one time.
Oh, that's awesome. Where is that?
So it's in Maine, which makes sense because that's where like all Stephen King shit is. It's because it's where he's from. So of course they were like, oh, we've got weird shit, and they claim to have a Bigfoot. And I will say this, I was a pretty stupid kid. I was pretty credulous. It was the least convincing fucking Bigfoot I've ever seen in my life. I didn't fall for it for 1 second. Although this has now given us like a nice transition, which is, you said, you're now known for the cryptocurrency space. How did that get started? How did you like first find your way here? And I know that's a big and broad question. And it takes a lot of responsibility off of me by giving a very broad, open-ended question as the first one for a guest. But, if you had like a kind of like origin story, an origin mythology, what would it be?
Yeah, let's get into it. Why not, right? Like, I feel as though it is a bit generic or whatever, a question, right? How did you get here and why? But it's what everybody wants to know, I think.
Right.
So let's see. I usually get a little bit rambly in these kind of scenarios, right? Like I think I don't know if I followed you either before or after I quit my full-time front end developer job back in November, but I've taken a lot of calls since then with crypto projects and like, well, how did you get here? So let's see.
Feel free to give me like the non-sanitized, non-commercial answer, right?
Oh, big time. So let's see. Like, I've been adjacent to crypto nerds since college, which not to dox my entire age, but I'll leave bits and pieces out there. So that was probably like 5 or 6 years ago. I was hearing about mostly just Bitcoin, stuff like that. And eventually, big Bitcoin is at 20,000 moment, which really was a moment, right? Everyone was poor after that. That kind of brought me in for real. I put in my first real money, which I didn't have real money then, barely have real money now, to be honest. But that brought me in, and since then I've had like a mild interest in trading, and like I got into trading more than anything. Um, finishing up like my degree. I got like a developer job like right before graduating, and I'd been a developer for a couple years before really, getting deep into trading, and DeFi happened. Um, and when I say DeFi happened, I mean it was like one day there was I cared about Bitcoin. The next day I heard about people um, farming yams, and we had urine finance come out. I was initially brought into DeFi like as a participant with sushi, so I farmed some sushi, and if I had kept it all, I probably would have been a little more comfy than I am now. But I sold a bunch at $1 or something prior to it going 20x that, like maybe a year later or something. And that was like my entrance into being an active crypto participant. And throughout that kind of stuff, my Twitter account kind of evolved from myself as like a nerd, like grumpy developer type, mostly just talking about music or things like that, to majorly crypto. And then, I was seeing people like Stun Likes and uh, Resolute Max, some traders, Alice Crypto. He's Alice Comfy now because he hates crypto. But these are people in the crypto space that I first started following. And they had anime profile pictures, and I had always loved anime, still do, if it isn't obvious by all of my footprints on the internet. Um, and so, anime PFP changed to a 0x handle at some point, although now it seems like I might
Yeah,
regret that.
we gotta
But
find a new meta. We gotta find a new cultural signifier.
I don't know how many people are going to listen to this, but I may or may not operate another account that is not a 0x that I also try to be funny on. That maybe you'll know one day. But um,
Yeah, this is great. That's the exact type
yeah,
of intrigue I want to stir up with this shit. Is just really just have people think about who everyone's alt could be, because that's the most important part. I feel like I'm the only person that truly doesn't have an alt. But I'm sorry, continue.
you could have an alt.
No
They
way. I
don't know.
barely. No, I'm too upfront about that, and I'm too egotistical. I would be like, "Was that tweet funny? It was actually me." those are those are
In a
my
way,
alts.
I do the same thing. But in any case, like I became a 0x anime PFP at some point in the past. Oh, I don't know how long it's been now, right? But I think a lot of my presence online is informed by my formative days in crypto, so to speak. Right? I was going to say formative years, but it may only be a few years now. I have kept track. Like my Twitter account isn't a good metric of that either, because it's my Twitter account's been around forever, like maybe 10 years. I forget when I started it,
Oh,
but
really?
yeah, I went back and I scrubbed all my old tweets. All of you detectives out there. So if you're gonna cancel me, do it with something I said recently. Because if it's recent, it's more valid, right? If I said it when I was,
Totally. Yeah, I mean, if you
10 years
were
ago, um,
I mean, I have so many questions. I have so many questions already.
we can just go for it.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
like being loosey goosey.
we can
In
just go step by step. I mean, very selfishly, I always have a lot of questions for people that I consider to be kind of influential in the space when I started, because you were right, we probably only met back in November. And I really wasn't on crypto Twitter before then in a anonymous fashion. I'm sure that somebody who's really good could find my like real identity, um, just because the following list is probably similar. I shouldn't say that shit. I'm gonna continue.
That's bad
Uh,
OPSEC, but it is
yeah,
entertaining, so I'll allow it.
but I'm always curious about like people's origin stories, and so many people in the space um, who we interact with now, I feel like made their 0x anime PFP trash move on a new account. And I think it's much more interesting that you kind of have maintained an internet presence under this account for an extended period of time. Um, my first like really big question is, what is the origin behind your name?
Ah, I get this sometimes. And I think I've gotten it before in like an AMA I've done on my account that I then turned into like a article on my friend group's site, which I don't have to name drop, but if you go to my Twitter, you'll
Wow,
probably know.
I'm sure nobody will be able to figure it out. I'm
Yeah,
100% sure that our audience will never figure that name
nobody
out.
knows what I'm talking about anyway. So, my name, right, Zero X Burden. I think I've given hints in the past that I've used the name in in a way as an alias before for some music stuff that I put out on my own. Um, I'm trying to decide how much I want to give away on that. Uh, here,
I mean,
this will
feel no
be
pressure, but
the
now, and
inside
you can.
scoop. So I'm a big fan of black metal, and uh, in in black metal uh, bands, it's typical that these nerds will take on funny names. Well, they're not funny names, but aliases that they put out music out as, right? So my black metal name is Burden, and that's because it's similar to one of my real names. And I thought that
I
was
wish you could
fun.
see the size of the smile that is on my face right now. Of all of the things that I did not expect was
Yeah.
your secret identity,
it's
producing, creating, and being a fan of black metal.
it's not like I put out a bunch of music under it. Effectively, one song that isn't really like I'm not. The project isn't called Burden. So if you're typing that into SoundCloud or Bandcamp at the moment, you'll probably find some cool stuff, but it's not me. Um, and that's kind of been it. Like my account, like I said, has been around for a while, and I've had various different handles over the years. So at some point, instead of making a new account, right, to address your um, comment prior, uh, I decided to just stick with it. I started getting some followers posting charts and things right after Bitcoin was looking serious again, right?
Mm-hmm.
When trading started to become um, less painful, uh, although it's about as painful now as it was back then. But I had started getting followers because I was doing the whole, post a chart, post the hashtag BTC or cash tag BTC, what have you. And I decided that rather than start fresh, I would just stick with it. I'll change my handle. And I didn't even go back and scrub tweets for a long time. So that all that was just in the ether for who knows how long. And
Can I ask,
yeah.
it's interesting. I feel like you have a reputation now, and as always, I'm only like speaking from my own very skewed perspective. You have a really strong reputation in the larger community, but I will also just say like specifically in our, whatever you want to call it, the
In our neck
OX
of the
anime
woods.
world. Yeah, our little niche microcosm. You have a really strong like reputation as a builder. Do you find it interesting? Like, well, I find it interesting, I guess I should say, that you started out like charting and sharing trades. Was there like a cognitive shift that you had to kind of make as you like withdrew maybe a little bit from that and applied more of your developer training to this, you know,
Hmm,
anonymous persona?
that's a good question. I think, well, with my mentality is with everything, like try to be authentic, right? And
Mm-hmm.
the the trading thing, like I still post charts and all that. It gets less engagement than maybe other things I might post, right? um, Definitely not as appealing as anime girls with wolf ears. But I started doing that just because it was a good way to keep track of my thoughts as a
Mm.
trader, right? It's public accountability, and um, the whole public accountability thing is something that I uh, do a lot, even if it's not all like development related. But um, I think I used to do a lot of these to do lists where I would talk about me trying to get work done, if I'm trying to develop something or, you know, stuff like that. And I think the two acts are they come from the same place, right? I'm just trying to think out loud, and now there's just more people that can hear me, right? So
Yeah,
I think
I think
the,
that's a
the
great
charts
answer.
informed it.
You touch on a word I kind of have written about recently and that I think about a lot, which is accountability. Do you feel this need even in our anonymous space, in our very like transitory space where you could just vanish and start again at any time? Do you feel like a great importance placed on accountability?
um, yeah, I mean, I think if anybody should be anything, it's accountable. And, if we're talking about the things we're working on in a public setting, even if, right, I talk about something that I'm trying to build and then I never finish it, someone may down the line say, hey, what was this thing you were working on, 3 months,
Mm-hmm.
4 months later? And that might be the impetus for me to finish, or it might be, um, you know, a thing to address publicly again, right? Like I gave up on this. Here's why, or something like that. I think it's important for, especially as an anonymous person on the internet with, or even without much of an audience, right? Just be real. You know, but did you or did you not do something? Why? Own up to what you do, and um, if you want to disappear after, that's your choice.
Yeah, I mean that is like a noble, I think like a noble personal sentiment. I think it's also like a noble aspirational sentiment for the space, right? Like, if we are built on the tenets of anonymity, then there is a higher degree of personal responsibility to hold oneself and others accountable, right? I mean, and the whole point of our everything, right? Like our technology that we're building off of or writing about or doing whatever is a participant agnostic accountability in terms of right like money or data or information. And so it makes sense that people who care about things like that should want their own selves to be held, in some way to a higher standard, because otherwise we wind up right back where we were before Bitcoin, and all of us are just wage slaving for BlackRock or whatever the fuck. Yeah, I love that answer. Just to circle back, and it's something I'm probably going to ask a lot of people because I feel like it really pertains to our kind of microcosm again. Why model your branding, your identity? Why anime?
Why anime indeed? Um, and I had this thought as you mentioned microcosm. It's a family, right? I think
Yeah.
there's a weird familial thing if you see another anime PFP in any part of Twitter, right? Um, I don't know what it is. It's strange. Maybe it's because um, so I'm majorly Filipino,
Mm.
um, my ethnic background, and growing up where I am, at least, like you see other Filipinos, whatever, everybody's your cousin, right? Everybody's your uncle, everybody's your cousin. And maybe that's how I feel about that. But to get back to your actual question, why anime? Uh, Anime has been a large part of what I enjoy for the longest time, right? I grew up watching anime after school, uh, I had a couple of huge trash bags full of Dragon Ball Z like tapes that I would get from my cousins. Back when I don't know if anybody knows what a VHS tape is, but I swear to God, I'm not 60 years old.
I
No,
really
I'm
hope our
65.
audience is
No,
old. I hope our audience is older than that because that really bums me out.
I genuinely don't know anymore, right? It still baffles me that people were born after the year 2000, but
I
that
mean,
dates me
look,
a little
paradigms
bit.
out here are hiring high schoolers, man. It is what it is. Everyone's younger
It's
now and smarter
beautiful.
than us.
It's beautiful, and I love it. Um, but yeah, anime has been a large part of my like personal joy, right?
Hmm.
I was torrenting episodes of Bleach as they came out in um, I guess it would have been elementary school. I went to like a kindergarten through eighth grade situation for almost up till eighth grade. So I didn't really have a separate elementary middle school experience really. But um, yeah, so I've just been an anime enjoyer throughout the years, fell in and out of it, and when I got into crypto like seriously, I kind of also got into anime seriously again. I would I have attended Anime Expo a number of times, and um, I intend to if it comes back this year also. So if you're at Anime Expo, you might um, be near me one day, all you listeners out there. But um, yeah,
You
so
and
I
I can
got
do a
into.
masked. We'll do a masked cosplay together, so that
Oh
no
my
one will
god, yeah.
recognize us and dox us.
Although, yeah, we'll see. I feel like some of my physical characteristics could be easily guessed based on the anime girls I post. But anyway, enough hints for the kids out there. Yeah, like I got back into anime enjoyment seriously when I got into crypto seriously. Um, so that like the two kind of went hand in hand, right? And so as I started watching anime again and actually reading manga because it wasn't a thing that I did really at all up until the past few years, or maybe even a
Oh,
year.
really?
I can't remember.
Hmm.
Yeah, I wasn't a big manga reader, but I got into that big time. Like, if it isn't obvious from my Twitter feed, like the past year probably. So it was kind of a natural thing to just um, post what I actually do like. I used to joke that I'm not LARPing about enjoying anime, uh, and I really am not. So like you can go out there, you can go on my anime list and see what I've watched. I don't keep it up to date or anything, but
Yeah, you're
genuine interest.
you're showing your street cred. Well, I mean, it's interesting to me. I think I'm a little bit older than a lot of people on crypto Twitter who we interact with without a full age docs. I'm really pulling up on 30 really quick. But certainly when I was growing up, and I feel like a lot of people in our space when you were growing up, in kind of the early, still disconnected forms of the internet, right? You had a lot of passions and loves, and I think 99% of the time, like anime, that were not like popular in your mainstream life. I had a fresh out of high school coworker a few years ago, who like her whole like gear, everything she wore was covered in anime shit. And I was like, whoa, this must be really rough for you. And she's like, what do you mean everyone likes anime now? And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? There's no
It's
way this shit
strange.
is cool. And so now
It's
the
so
kids like
strange to me.
but it is also like, in the finance space, I work in finance. I still have my day job, unlike a lot of other people. But I
No
work in the
shame.
finance space, which I love, and I really love it. And you'll hear Karn joke about it a lot that I'm like a natural bureaucrat, but I don't really share any anime things with my coworkers. And crypto Twitter, it still seems to have a little bit of that where we are using a potentially, I'm not going to say embarrassing, but certainly not popular cultural signifier to show that we are like, we're not lame. And I think, and I tweeted this before, like the femboy meta I see as an evolution of the same, and of being like, well, no one who wears a Patagonia vest is going to be talking about, like femboy lewds online, or at least, I mean, I could be wrong. Now I'm sure the FBI is just like in one of our shadowy chats, just being like, oh yeah,
I'm right here. What do you
I love
mean?
STEMmy.
No, but
You wouldn't be my
yeah.
guest for Fed. I feel like I have a list in the back of my. Maybe we should do that. I should have a panel show where everyone comes on and says who they think the Fed is.
Guess that
But
fed with Kate tonight. That
guess
would
the
be
guess.
amazing.
Yeah, it would be great. I get got immediately. You just hear my line go dead. But no, I think it's something that I like think about a lot because you know there are definitely people who seem to kind of be popular in a mainstream way on Twitter who do, without sounding like an angry nerd or anything or like some fucking Reddit dork, but like they do like kind of like sports and like or like hyper mainstream or hyper masculine style posting on their accounts, and that gets a lot of engagement from people who aren't as deep into crypto Twitter or deep into crypto. And then you have this whole corner of the internet where people are just like posting like Photoshop doujins and porn. Like it's just like literal hentai on the timeline. And I think it's very funny. I think it's a, in a way that is not maybe aggressive, it's a really effective way of gatekeeping our community from like the wider portions of it. It is kind of like, man, I really don't want to have to talk to some like dad from Ohio ever on Twitter. So I'm
Yeah.
going to front load. I brought this up a while ago, but I think really one of the funniest people to do it was I remember Indigo went like got a bunch of followers from some retweet, and the top of his profile was pinned like I post femboy porn. Like if you are following me for like the good takes, it's not going to be had here. And I almost see it, the opposite way now, where like the more anime a person is, the better or hotter the takes are, or the information, the alpha tends to be more valuable to me. I guess that
I
kind of leads,
agree.
I, that leads to kind of another question. You know, you didn't name drop your special friend group that obviously no one knows, but do you think that our side of crypto Twitter, or rather, I'm not going to keep saying our. It sounds exclusionary. Do you think like the like anime builder, Mev femboy extractor, whatever side of Twitter tends to collectivize in a more deliberate way than other parts of it? Do you think there is maybe more of a drive to like friendship groups?
Oh yeah, 100%. The nicest people, my closest friends on crypto Twitter, um, come from this same like area, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some of them um like don't actually watch as much anime or read as much manga as others, but like the mentality is there, right? Like um collaboration, it goes a long way. So sharing thoughts, sharing ideas, very important, right? Like I think it's in a way it contrasts how I feel about or what I've seen rather in the sort of normie like sports bros, for example, right? You can go to a gas station on a game day and wear the wrong jersey and have somebody, yell at you and call you an idiot, right? Like you go to Anime Expo or what anywhere, like the mall, you see somebody in an anime shirt or something like that, and like the commonalities outweigh the maybe you don't like that anime or what have you, right? Like uh, wherein that that opposite way, right? You wear the wrong jersey on a sports game day, and instead of somebody, accosting you due to mutual interest in whatever sport, it's um, they oppose your team or whatever, and it's adversarial for no reason really. Um, like tribalism can be cool and it can be not. uh, in that way, right? Um, getting tribal about sports teams really annoys me. But um,
It's
seeing,
funny you
yeah,
use that word because it's crypto is an intensely tribal space, and not just in the sense of like ever liking anime. I mean, you see people who are like really passionately dedicated to their bags, dedicated to projects, dedicated to tokens, dedicated to influencers. Do you think we maybe like have to shed that to advance? Do you think we maybe, or is that always going to just be a part of this ecosystem? Are people always going to still be? I almost said one, and I felt like the wrong hashtag would listen to this, and they'd be like, "Fuck this guy. We're gonna fuck his life up because he doesn't like XRP." Fuck.
oh man, yeah,
But
careful
like,
with that ticker.
oh, it's okay. One of us here is still holding a very long bag on a very bad bet because they don't know how to sell anything. So I'm right there with them. But no,
Can't
do you think
relate.
we have? Do you think we kind of have to get past that tribalism?
In a way, sure, right? But at the same time, I'm a bit of a I don't want to call myself a doomer per se, but I have a lot of acceptance in just, the downsides to people, right? Like being clicky or, tribal in to return to that terminology is just built into us, right? Like people seek an in group or they seek acceptance from something larger, right? That's why I think religion is such a big thing in people's lives. Like I am not. I'll even say I'm mostly anti-religion. Not that I'm anti-faith or anything, but um, yeah, like to return to your question, um, yeah, like maybe the space needs to get over some parts of its um, tribalism, like toxic bag holders, sure, right? But uh, to a certain degree, I think progress will happen otherwise. Um, yeah, just because people are the way that they are, which is sometimes an unfortunate realization I come to on a daily basis, and sometimes it's a beautiful thing, right? It's the duality of um, you know just people. So
I
it's
mean,
rough.
this is maybe a difficult question to ask someone a self-identified doomer in crypto, but you know, a lot of things have happened recently. We saw, and some of it was unverified, whatever. Things like, the MetaMask Venezuela thing, new executive orders on crypto. We've seen the launch of the Verity, which is like a decentralized identification protocol that's theoretically supposed to make, um, you know, kind of an in between KYC, full doxing, all of these other things, really is an entrance for traditional markets. I think it's inevitable, right, that we are pushing towards greater government oversight, greater regulation, greater KYC. There will be fewer and fewer places to go. What do you think? And I guess the reason I say doomer is I was going to say optimistically, but perhaps optimistically and pessimistically in the two-pronged answer. Where do you think we're heading? Are we going to build an even deeper, more private layer? Are we going to retreat to the corners, or do you think it is possible to kind of like arrive at this comfortable middle ground where TradFi can come in and play, the government is satisfied in some way, and then people like us who prefer to remain anonymous, maybe don't want all of our holdings and our life and whatever on display. Do you think we can arrive at like a détente?
That is a very good question.
All I try and do
Uh,
is get one really good question every time. The rest of it, I kind of just
these
say
have all
whatever
been
about.
excellent. But
Sounds
um,
cool.
to take on this very good question, I think, for example, if MetaMask becomes this, uh, you know, personal identification information hole, right? Um, we're either going to start using different wallets. Somebody's going to build friendlier browser extension for the privacy loving folks, and if that's starting to get shut down, then um, we need to fight for a freer internet. But at the same time, that is a very, very hard thing to do, right? Because uh, free speech, cool when you say it, but it leads to a lot of problems, like in the case of hate speech, stuff like that. So it's really hard to address these things on a governmental level, even if the government was actually competent, which is up for debate. Um, but I think, if regulations come down left and right, there will still be builders who will find you a way out or will be trying to find you a way out all the time, right? Whether it's different wallets to use to interact with dApps, um, whether it's uh, what would be cool, in my opinion, is if somehow, so like all of the giga rich crypto people just acquire um, like a small country and just make everything crypto native friendly, so you don't need a bank account to cash out to fiat to live, right? Like you could pay your rent in ether or something. Um,
Not to interrupt, do you think anyone is capable of that level of altruism in our space? I think maybe, like I could see maybe like Kobe, I think is a very fair example. But like, do you think there can be that level of altruism, particularly because these like giga rich traders, so many of them have operated in kind of like a, fundamentally capitalist, self-interested way by definition.
mhm.
Do you think
uh,
something like that kind of collectivization and altruism is possible?
well, I'll say this: capable. Yes, I think they're capable. Sure. Is it that they're willing? From what I've seen, likely not. Right. Not that I'm taking shots at the big traders on crypto Twitter, but I kind of am in that there's a lot of self interest, right? Like
Yeah.
um, retire in condos in Miami or whatever. Very cool. I'm happy for you if you can do so. But if you have the money to put down to sort of shape the future in the way that would be beneficial for the rest of the crypto space, I would hope that you have the impetus to do so one day. If I become giga rich, maybe I would hold myself to that same uh, vision, but I can't say for sure. Money changes people, I'm sure,
Mm.
and priorities change depending on your lifestyle. So who knows? Like capable, yes. Will something like that happen? Would be cool. I maybe wouldn't bet on it yet, although there is a lot of cool things happening um, where we're kind of seeing the onset of a mentality like this, right? Like, I can't remember the name, but there's DAOs trying to acquire like physical land or
Hmm.
um, physical assets, right? Just, I think it all leads to some way of living a normal life where crypto is your regular exchange for um, like lunch or rent, whatever it is,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
which you can kind of do now with the caveat that there's KYC and things. I think in some countries there's like South America, stuff like that. You can pay for stuff with Bitcoin on the Lightning network and things like that. But um, there is definitely KYC involved with that. So
It's
That's the
interesting
trade-off.
to it's interesting to me, like the kind of example that you pulled right away is like well, if MetaMask and all these things start becoming less and less anon friendly, that builders will find us a way out. And while I super love the kind of like matrix like image of an operator finding you a phone to like get out at the last second, which I think is very cool and is generally how I think of builders. My worry is like, does that lead to a zero sum game where we are constantly building these smaller and smaller and smaller rabbit holes, where we are trying to get back to this place where we were initially, as more and more outside money and regulation comes in. I guess like kind of my end question is like, is there a point for you, and totally personal, like this is like personal question, but like, is there a point for you, because I know there was one for me, and I imagine that everyone has their own point, and even to a degree, my point has already come. Like, is there a point where you kind of just stop running, and either like disconnect entirely or engage in the mixed, unfavorable potentially circumstances that we would have to contend with?
hmm Um, so I think, um, like inevitably, uh, innovation will continue, whether or not, um, what's the words I'm looking for? Like there, I would like to believe that, um, there will always be builders, right? Not necessarily, software engineers, things like that, but always people seeking to make life better somehow, right, with their own
Mm-hmm.
hands. And uh, even if it becomes this crazy game of running from regulation to build a non-friendly web services, things like that, I think there's likely going to be people out there trying to do it, even if it's under the radar and not you or I know about it. Somebody's going to be trying somehow, right? And um, in that way, I think at a certain point, maybe I'll stop trying to build things just because, um, I don't know, exhaustion has to set in at some point. I feel,
Mm-hmm.
but who knows? I may die building, right? Like I have tried to take breaks in the past. Um, I tried to take a break a bit when I quit my full time job in November, and that really didn't work at all. I ended up taking on um, like a gig kind of deal in my last week of work, and I told myself after that, well, maybe I'll take a week off or something, and I ended up agreeing to 5 other things. So I think it's in a lot of people's nature to just keep pursuing opportunity or um, to just to seek self satisfaction in that way. I think that's the impetus for a lot of projects I've started. Maybe not a lot of projects I've finished because I'm a quitter, but um, yeah, like uh, especially with a lot of other developer friends I have, the urge to build something seems to always be there. The follow through is difficult, I think, at times, or stuff loses its shine after so long. But um, yeah, as far as I'm willing to believe at this point, like builders will just build, uh, no matter what.
I love. I mean, that's a great manifesto to have, and I mean, I guess kind of to go off that, and we can totally disregard this question and move on if there's not something you want to reveal. But is there anything you want to talk about that you're building right now? Is there anything that you're like feeling really, geeked out about, really passionate about? I never want to unveil super shadowy, coding when it's not ready.
Yeah.
But is there anything that's kind of like that you're kind of fixated on right now? Be it like even just like a protocol that you're like playing around with that you love, or yeah, something concrete that you're working on that's really just like holding your attention.
Mm, That's interesting. So I my focus primarily right now is largely just been to keep the lights on around here.
Hmm.
Like I'm working alongside Carnation actually at for the Umami Finance folks, and we just put out like a slightly more polished version of the UI for Arby's Finance, which um, not to plug that really, but like just as a
Well,
statement of what I'm working on.
I was.
Like as far as stuff that actually is keeping my attention, right? Like I want to dive deeper into the whole MEV thing. And
Hmm.
I've been trying to do my research and get my hands dirty a bit here and there, but I have to learn a little bit more Solidity, I think, and I want to do more reading on just the way Ethereum works to really get going on it. But I think moving forward, that would be a large interest of mine. Like, um, I think as far as like if anybody's watching my Twitter account for Alpha on a protocol I'm working on, like you might be disappointed because mostly I'm a front end developer, so like uh well, if people are going to call me in to help with stuff, it's typically to um like make their website work a little bit better, right? Like the contracts are already written or the meat of the product is built, right? But I would like to not be primarily a front end developer in the future, so um that's why I'm trying to always be learning now, right? Like even if it's not Ethereum or an EVM kind of chain, I'm trying to learn as much as I can, right? The Solana ecosystem, very interesting to me, um, even though it's sort of lost its appeal over the past few months.
Please
Uh,
don't say that. Please don't say that for my bags. I'm holding so many illiquid, terrible Solana shit.
you're not alone, and there's a lot of cool things happening on in that ecosystem, right? Like um, I think I have some UXD. They're a cool stablecoin kind of protocol. I have some friends involved with that today. I think that's really cool, right? But you know, um, where was I going with that? Like, I'm not necessarily building uh stuff right now that like is exactly like my like biggest passion in life, right? Like
Hmm.
I appreciate what I'm working on, and I like that people have come to me and asked for help to work on some stuff that I've got my hands on currently. Um, but I'm certainly not the builder that maybe some other anime characters are. Um, maybe I'm being humble or not, or
I mean,
self-deprecating, what have you. But
modesty
yeah,
is a great trait to have in our space where I feel like it is
I
very, very
try.
much lacking. I was going to say it is very funny to have two people contributing to Umami on in a row. It does kind of look like this whole thing is being bankrolled by them, which I promise it's not. But that would be, I mean, if they want to cut me a check, that would be phenomenal. I'll take it any day of the week. I mean, do you
That would be
think,
funny.
do you, do you think like the Meave stuff, do you think like that, there's a longevity there? Because I mean, to me, and like I'm very open about this. I'm an incredibly non-technical person.
Mhm.
I have absolutely no technical ability. I have none in my background. It is not a part of my day job in any way. I'm pretty much only good at like like writing poems and sometimes like talking to people over a microphone. Do you do you think, and this is like this is almost like me asking, like, do you think we are just seeing these rapid cycles of like fads of things that are popular that have any real longevity? Like we saw the big, and I talked about this in the last episode with Carnation. Like we saw the big like meta pop off, and then it literally seemed like one day I woke up and everybody's name was a Meave pun. Everybody
I remember that
everybody
day.
was like extracting, and I was like, A, I don't even understand what this shit is, but B, I was like, it just seemed to me one of those like moments again, like the ecosystem moves so quickly and so dynamically just by dint of operating 24/7, where we don't have the slowdowns of a traditional market, and simultaneously we don't have the existing infrastructure of of either traditional markets or traditional communications data, what have you. So like, do you feel like we're in this kind of process of just like, pulling these like things that are really hot for like a week or a few months, and like, does it have longevity? Do you think we'll kind of continue that cycle?
Hmm. I think as like a broad address of is is our space does our space have ADHD right now? I think yes. Um, people are bored. Prices chart bad, price bad, um, and you know whether it's tubby cats, My Lady, uh, NFTs, or whatever new shitcoin is on the horizon, attention will shift if there's nothing else to be focusing on, right? Like it's whether or not MEV is one of these things, I think is a bit of a different question, right? Because
Hmm.
extracting value on chains where it's possible, I think, is always going to be a pursuit for some people, right? Like in the same way that, um, like, taking advantage of market inefficiencies for like forex traders and things like that is like their bread and butter. Like arbitrage is only one part of MEV, but that's a big part of it, and I think that's one of the MEV things that brings people in. Um, is one way of like, oh, people have made a lot of money from doing this, right? But there's more to it than that, right? There's like, um, you know, manipulating transactions and things like that for your own personal benefit and maybe the miner's benefit, stuff like that. And that's, I don't have a brain big enough to really like speak confidently about it.
Well,
But
if
that
you
kind
don't,
of
then I'm
stuff is,
fucked. I mean,
yeah, that kind of thing is also part of searching and extracting value. Excuse me. And you know, it was a hot joke for a day, and then it went away, and I was pretty happy that it went away.
yeah.
But I think it solidified an interest in my own mind, at least, to dig deeper. And even if it's not the hot button topic of this week, I'm obviously still interested, right? And I think
Hmm.
there is that will always be true for all of our little fun fads. For example, like being in a Zero X anime character,
Right, right.
there's too many of us. All right, I'm gonna be 100% honest. Like,
People are running out of characters. I saw Zero
yeah,
X like anime references that I was like, you are a bit part from one season of a D-list like Crunchyroll original. Like, what are you doing?
exactly. And it's just LARP, like,
Yeah, yeah.
and if you wanted, God, when I was a young person, and if I had only known that liking anime would be cool at any point,
I mean,
maybe I would have picked up that football. I don't know,
and not
you
even, but
know?
not even like cool, like a strat, right? Like a
Yeah,
play, like a calculated maneuver. That's what's like really bizarre about it to me. Just to go back to something you said, I heard this recently from a source I won't say because I will dox myself, but this person was talking, and they said, we are at this stage right now where you're at an internet convention and everyone is still building the technology. You're still seeing the technology, and it's only after that the technology goes away from public view that's when things get really crazy. And they meant it from, right, an investor standpoint, a valuation standpoint,
hmm,
a accessibility standpoint. I do think, it's not even really a question, it's a kind of an obvious statement of fact, but like, we are still in that place where like every single day in the public square people are building parts of this ecosystem, and the parts that wither and die, end up making, better soil for things to grow out of, or one idea will like very brilliantly lead to another. And like as an outsider to the technical side of things, right? Like it feels very exciting to watch. I can only imagine it's, dawn of personal computing, the same type of questions, energy going on, not nearly to the same level. Um, so I guess my question is like, are you kind of in it for the thrill of that? Because I know I am, and I'm not even like in any way, building or technically minded. But like, do you feel like money? I almost hate to use the thing because it's such a meme at this point, but like, in it for the tech, like, do you feel compelled by that just as much as any other aspect of it?
Uh, am I in it for the tech? Well, yeah, at this point, I still have some of my uh, doubt sometimes
Mm.
about, whether or not some parts of the space can be successful in a more broad sense. But um, I think the pursuits of a lot of these builders are valid, and uh, they're everybody's trying to solve problems, um, and I think that blockchain tech as a whole can solve a lot of problems, right? Can it solve problems? Yes. Can it create a lot of problems? Also, yes, right? Because um, it's really cool that I can like hold some of my crypto uh as collateral on Aave and take a loan and then cash that loan out and pay some bills, and then maybe I get paid for development work and I pay that back, and then I still have my crypto. Like that's really cool, right? A 12-year-old trading uh, super hentai moon coin on Binance Smart Chain because of their access to the internet and
Yeah.
mom's credit card. A little problematic, but it's punk rock, so I can't really be that mad about it. I was doing not that, but I was doing things a little out of my age bracket then too. I just wasn't. I didn't have TikTok to broadcast it to the world. But blockchain enables both of these avenues, right? Like,
Yeah.
uh,
It's kind of like you got to take, if you want the cyberpunk future, you kind of got to take the good with the bad. Um, you really got me with hentai mooncoin. I don't know.
if it's out,
Well,
if
because
it's not out there, we could do it.
can
We
we?
could
We'll delay this to
make it.
launch that so we can really rug some motherfuckers.
Oh
No, I
yeah.
also like it's almost like the image of like the new sending children down into the coal mines to work is just having kids do 100x TikTok videos off of Cumcoin. Um, and I think, I mean, kind of goes without saying, I feel like that is like some of the larger concern from the regulatory side of things. But yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think it's like kind of interesting how the like term in it for the tech became kind of almost like derogatory, right? Like kind of laughed at, and there were a lot of like these giga whale big traders who are kind of like, this shit is a scam. It fundamentally, I'm like playing an asset class that is extremely volatile. I'm approaching this as any other type of like active day trader would, and this asset class just happens to have lower barrier to entry. And I don't know if it's whether that because I'm a very, very, very bad trader or I'm very, very, very idealistic. But I really like, I genuinely am in it for the tech, and I think it's just interesting how much people have kind of like pushed back on that. And I feel like it's only now, kind of this one of these things, these small groups of these sub 10,000 follower accounts are gathering together and being like, I am like very shamefully, I'm in it for the building. I don't just want the Lambo. Not that I don't want the Lambo. And my first opportunity to get the condo in Miami, I will take, and I will never talk to anybody again. And I know that about myself, and I won't be like crypto is fake. But yeah, I mean, I think that's like, that's one of the real dichotomies to me. And I think that's why our, this corner of crypto Twitter that we interact with is so much more compelling, because there is a sense of not just community, but like idealism. So, which is why I think it's kind of interesting you use the word doomer, because like I feel like many people I talk to kind of struggle with that internal division, right? Between, you know, growing up, certainly people of our generation growing up in a system that wasn't built to function for them, with credit scores getting forced on them before they were even born, with the criminal like capitalist enterprises around us destroying ourselves and the world. And yet we are still aspirationally believing in something on a personal level because we think it will take us out of, be it poverty or the like wage race, or in a global sense we'll think like this you know, this tech can save the world. So I think I know personally I much more would rather engage with a space that feels idealistic instead of like this kind of capitalist nihilist death cult of, well, I don't really care what happens as long as I get, you know, a Taycan and my like shitty prefab, very expensive condo, then I don't really care what happens to anybody else. And I think, you know, that life probably ends up feeling very unfulfilling.
I would hope it does. I would hope that
He
you
said,
start
he
to
said,
regret
fuck
some
them
of the
kids.
choices you've made. But I don't
Yeah.
know. I'm not rich, so you know
Well, you're
maybe
not
one day
rich?
I'll
What
know.
the fuck? God
I
damn
know,
it.
right?
I was hoping you would get rich. Um, do you feel, are there days where you feel like that spark of idealism?
Um, all the time, right?
Yeah.
As somebody, I think I mentioned earlier, like I'm Filipino mostly. Like I'm of mixed ethnic background, and I don't present as very Filipino. But I'm not um like whatever. I'm not a white person, right? And
Hmm.
whether people want to believe it or not, sometimes when you're not white, you don't get afforded the same uh, treatment in certain contexts, right? And
I
like,
can't believe that that is in any way a controversial take. I really genuinely, like, I'm looking up at the sky, I'm praying to God. I'm just like, please, nobody find issue with that. You
yeah,
know,
I
like
hope
an
nobody
18-year-old, like Reddit debate lord is going to be like, actually, there's no evidence of that. And actually, it doesn't matter what zip code you were born in for your longevity and life expectancy.
Yeah, it's so brutal. But in that way, like that's informed a bit, I think, my take on why crypto is important. Like,
Hmm.
some people can't get loans that are whatever interest rate Aave is offering right now, for example, like um, when they need money, right? So
Hmm.
to make something that enables this like system for people, whether loans as an example, but um,
I think loans are are the smartest example, right? Like in America, we have the payday loan, which is like one of the greatest tools of cruelty for
oh, so
the
predatory,
disadvantaged.
right?
I mean, like insane, illegal, obviously terrible, right up there with like for-profit universities and student loans. But like, I think the loan is the piece of it, right? I think the loan is actually like a huge underrated part because like we can talk about yield or whatever, but the real reason like people want KYC or companies want KYC is so that they can interact with protocols like Aave with that while mitigating counterparty risk and balancing their financials to take advantage of like, you know, loans and lending. Like I mean that is the foundation of the American economy in a way that, you know, venture capital, whatever, will never be. It is entirely about the loan. So I think you're really,
Oh yeah.
I think you're like you're touching on that is very clear. The only other thing I would say is that I think, you know, anime is fundamentally idealistic and the desire for the egalitarian. As cringe as that sounds, like I think it is like
Put that
one
on a
of the.
shirt, Kitsune, please.
Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
it's like something I really believe in, right? Like it is it is like a pursuit of like justice, of friendship, of protecting everybody, of believing that a better world is possible. Even like the grim dark, you know, whatever terrible shit you might have end up watching. You know, I mean everyone's seen that berserk meme where it's like, are you trying to tell me that no matter how terrible life is, you have to just keep going? And it's Guts being like, yes. Like it is like fundamentally the belief, even a fantastical belief, that things will be better. So just to make it, actually that kind of looks smart. It almost meant like it looks like I meant to do that, like to take it full circle to the anime conversation. I hope it's no surprise that like idealism resonates strongly in our community.
Oh yeah. And I think idealism has to carry a lot of people's behavior. Like it informs motivations a lot of the time, I think, right? Like I if I didn't idealize like having a level financial playing field for some people,
Hmm.
maybe I probably wouldn't care as much about being in this space at
Right.
all, right? Like maybe I would still be a front end developer for a company that sold like health and wellness products or whatever
Yeah.
for
Or Raytheon in New York
totally
selling
random
Hellfire
examples.
missiles, you know?
Yeah. Like your ideals inform how you act, and I think um, you know, as with all art, right? Like art is an expression of like the creator's like thoughts and opinions and ideals, even if at the time the artist may not have actively realized or
Hmm.
um, anything like that, which sounds kind of psycho babbly saying it out loud, but I think that it's true,
No, I
right?
think
Like,
it makes a lot of sense.
yeah,
I think that is like a fundamental truth.
there's a lot of really rough, we'll call it art out there, and it exists as an expression of that creator's thoughts and opinions, or their reaction to to things that are informing that creator's thoughts and opinions, and um, you know that's that's why uh, anime and manga can be so compelling. I think is it's a it can be a little bit unhinged, right? Like uh, there's a lot of wacky content out there from these artists in Japan, and even more broadly speaking, art all around, right? Like lowbrow art has kind of come into its own the past few years, I think, in a way.
I mean, that was Bored Apes right there for you. I
Yeah,
mean, that was really, in a way,
even now
you
with
know,
the my ladies, right? Like
well, I
or
think those are
Mill 80s.
fucking
I don't know how
based.
I'm.
I think those are
Yeah.
sick. I showed one, I showed one to my wife, and she was literally like, "If you buy that shit, like," but honestly, I think they're very cool. I mean, but just to go back to like this idea of, like art in a more global sense, right? It's like, you know, one of the key parts I think that differentiates people who like love and care about other people, or in love and care about communities, or who care about a fundamental love of humanity, is the appreciation and the witnessing of art. I think it's I think a lot of you can tell a lot about a person whether they what they consider art, or even if they care about art. And I think like the absence of that kind of like emotional awareness and empathy is one of the dead giveaways to me. And I honestly think it was one of the saddest things about the NFT space, that we actually used the term art for a lot of these like digital collectibles and graphical goods, because I think it robbed a little bit of the power of what like emotional resonant art can make. I don't really think anybody is having an intense like I love like Cezanne. I love Cezanne paintings. I've cried in front of
Mhm.
Cezanne paintings in art galleries like a total embarrassing art school loser many times in my life. I do not believe anybody is having an epiphany of the soul over a CryptoPunk or a Bored Ape. And yet, by the metrics that we now judge things with, these are some of the highest valued pieces of art in the game, and certainly when people are now like trying to acquire art. Yeah, I think there's. That was almost my own tangent. I've almost interviewed myself, but like I do think like I do think like that is a dissonance point for me, and I think it is also probably a long-term position that many of us have had, of having to explain to somebody at some point like, no, 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 anime and manga is art. I promise. I promise it is actually art.
Oh, big time.
um
Like it's definitely less embarrassing these days. Certainly, what with there's a lot of streetwear brands that have collaborations and now, and so you see Demon Slayer merchandise and
oh my god,
Naruto and stuff like that,
you're talking to the
which
grown
is
man who
cool.
will be in the Uniqlo when there is like one of those Evangelion drops, just buying
Oh
Ava
yeah.
drip, like looking like a total freak.
While you're there, you get some of those easy jeans or whatever they're called. Those fit
I'm
great. Anyway,
I am getting I have a pair of those getting on right now. I'm not even kidding. The
they're
stretchy
so
ones for old
comfortable.
people. Yeah,
Uniqlo, if you're out there, my ETH address is burden.eth. No. Um,
I just be
yeah, like
that
the
would be the
the
best crossover if you got a Uniqlo t-shirt. Just
oh my
oh my
god,
god, this is the dream.
that would be amazing. Anyway, to actually speak meaningfully for a moment, the it's funny how NFTs have really gotten out of hand. I think, right? Like it seems as though the scammy 10,000 picture thing, like as a grift, has not died. Even though I think a lot of
Right.
mainstream popularity has died down and stuff like that. I 100% am not really here for that kind of stuff. Um, Although, obviously I'm not opposed to these projects, right? Like I have bought many. I would make projects like that, obviously. But um like as a grift, it's still around and it's very interesting to see it survive in this crypto environment that we have now where the market is on the brink of disaster every day, right? But um these things soldier on, right? Like I think it speaks to adoption in a way, and I think eventually the grifting will get slightly better. I would hope, and I think
Yeah,
largely,
overall.
largely one of one art, like actual art pieces, will become more and more of um, a sought after uh, asset in the
Mhm.
NFT space, and it already is, right? I may or may not have a bid on something on Foundation right now, because I've come to this point where I don't want 50 pudgy penguins, and I don't want um you know I'd be lying if I said I didn't want a punk, but
Well, I mean, of
yeah,
course, but that's because it's an asset class now, right?
yeah.
Are you moved by the pixels? No. I don't know, maybe you are. I didn't mean that. That sounded really
Am I moved
shitty.
by the pixels? I
Is it like
mean,
it's like
you're
you
talking to somebody that watches anime and I don't
well
know,
those
maybe
pictures
hentai.
pixels tend to have curvature.
But in any case, right? Like I think like as the space matures, actual things that should be appreciated, in my opinion, will be. Or I'm wrong, and you know, I'll get a different, I'll get different hobbies. I
Hey, I
got other
mean,
stuff I could be doing.
you're talking to a guy who makes one of one poetry NFTs in his spare time. So God, I would fucking love that. That would be fantastic. Um, are you ready for our closing questions, our lightning round of fun questions?
Oh, lightning round. Yeah, let's go for it.
It can be as lightning as you want, or it can be as non-lightning as you want. I always like to say lightning round because I feel like I'm on a game show.
I'll leave the pacing to you, but
Fantastic.
I,
I
I
feel
will
like I
do my
gotta.
best to keep up.
Okay, first question. Super simple. Who's your favorite poster? Shit poster, lewd poster, alpha poster, whatever. Who's someone that every time you see their tweet, your face just lights up?
Oh, this is a tough one. It has to be one, probably, right?
No, I mean shit. I don't. There's
Uh,
no rules. This is the second episode of a podcast that accidentally got invented.
that's true. I'd have to say, off the top of my head, stun likes. Stun's really cool. Um, Racer, Zero X Racer. Although, who knows whether or not tomorrow they'll deactivate again and then we'll be racerless. But um, like, all right, I'll do a name drop. Everyone in Waifu is anonymous. All right. I said
It
it.
took it took
We're at the
until
end.
the to the end to be, yeah. Which is I will say as an aside, that's a very fun bit to do on a show. Is just pretend like I don't know who the fuck you're talking about. Um,
I mean, I don't, but if I knew them, I think they were cool.
um, Similar question: who's underrated? Who do you think is
Ooh,
like? Who do you think Steven
zero
Sam?
X underscore Kitsune.
Come on,
Uh,
come on. That's the second time. This is the second time.
you're
Carnation said the same
undersubscribed,
thing.
all right? Just
I
accept it.
I I think I am. Although now again that this has happened twice in a row, it looks very self-aggrandizing. Um, Anyone else? Otherwise,
Oh,
you're gonna have to like be like you're gonna have to tell me why, and I'm gonna not be able to handle that.
okay. So definitely, I'm friends with so many smart people that aren't as popular. This is such a tough call. We'll do crypto EPO, uh,
Excellent.
IPPO. You'll find EPO around. Very smart person. Love them. Huge crush. They'll love that I said that. Um, Kiana XBT. I'm just naming people in that group that I said earlier now. Fuck. Um,
Yeah, you're just naming a list. You're like you
Sake
want to know what's.
Blues. I don't know. Look,
I mean, that's
this is
good.
tough. This is tough. I'm at the
It is
bottom of
tough.
this beer that I'm drinking. I don't normally drink. I thought I would try and show off. I think don't you have a
You're trying.
background with drinks?
Yeah,
I
a
don't
a
normally
life
drink.
background. Well, that's that's funny because now I get to substitute one of my later questions because it wouldn't work. But no, I think it's funny. Like even the question of what is underrated, like the reason, kind of one of the reasons I asked that is, if you had asked me a few months ago, I would have been like, oh man, this dude Noah is like so underrated, but now he's like blown up and is like
Oh
completely,
yeah.
yeah. Which is I would so you never know in like crypto Twitter where someone is just like gonna hit one day in a big way. I'm still my someday
Kitsune
someone's
to
gonna want to
10,000 followers tomorrow.
if that
I'm
yeah
it's my
people that's
mission.
like the real disappointment. Okay, so this one I normally ask, I go like, well, what's your favorite cocktail? But if you don't drink, there's no pressure to answer that.
Yeah, I don't. All right.
My favorite
As
cocktail
we're
is
in the lightning
beer.
round, yeah, no, like if we're in the lightning round, I'll be brief. Like I did not drink at all for a long time. I started recently, and by started I mean I have a beer every once in a while, and sometimes I have a sip of friends and family's crazy mixed drinks, and I don't know what's in them, and typically I don't care. But if I want to drink, I'll ask for some kind of beer. I don't know a lot of names of them. Uh, but I know the names of two Japanese beers, and if there's those are around, then I usually go for those.
Some real weeb type
You
behavior.
know,
Just going, sorry, where
or
are these? Sorry,
Stella,
where are these
Stella
from?
Artois, because I like Porsche cars, and there's these modified Porsches called RWBs. They're made by this is still weeby because they're made by a Japanese dude, but he has a car with Stella Artois livery on the side, and
Oh, very cool.
yeah, so sometimes if that's around, I'll have a Stella, but not a big
Well,
drinker.
well, now my goal is to make you a custom cocktail that you will enjoy. So my substitute question for that then is, and it doesn't have to be one. I know how difficult this is. Favorite anime or favorite anime plural?
Ooh, yeah, this is horrendous as a question for me. Um,
You know what? As somebody who's like new to interviewing, I have the deep
this is good
self-loathing
though.
fear of hearing that is a horrendous question for me.
This is what the people want, right?
Yeah, this
Like
is the meat of
there's a
it.
little bit of joy in seeing somebody squirm, you know.
I'm holding your feet to the fire on this one. This is like a real accountable ass interview.
This is so hard to answer. Look, one of my all time favorite anime is the Full Metal Panic series. I guess we'd say there's a couple of different. There's like a main season, and then they did a follow up season with like a like colon sentence after the name, and then they did like a funny season after. So it's not really um, all one entity, but the Full Metal Panic series, one of my
I
favorite
feel like
like
that
anime.
explanation was never less required than for the audience that is listening to this. They're probably like, oh yeah, colon,
Yeah,
spin off. Yeah, oh, I'm all over it. That's a great
yeah.
answer. I think an underrated answer. Again, a lot of people are very young, are younger than us in this space, and they're probably like, oh, I've never actually heard of that. And the job is to introduce them to things that aren't, admittedly, the very good things that are on recently every season. But like sometimes you got to get a little deep with it. You got to get some kids on Serial Experiments Lane and Paranoia Agent and shit.
Oh man, Lane. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually was late to the Lane train, so to speak. But yeah, Full Metal Panic,
I'm
kids out
sorry.
there, check it out. Oh man, the deep anime cuts are.
Yeah.
I love doing
Um,
that with Big D Senpai. Uh,
oh,
Big D is a
a,
friend of mine.
a
OG.
mind for that stuff. Yeah, it's
Yes.
very true. Late to the Lane Train, by the way, will be a new banner that I will be sending over that I'm going to go design and make because that is a truly wonderful turn of phrase. Um, okay, so that concludes our lightning round. Do you have any last thought that you want to share? Any can be call to action, aspiration, shout out, plug your mixtape.
Oh my god. My mixtape is absolute fire. No. It's mediocre at best. No. All right. Let's get serious for a moment. If I wanted to do anything as a closing address to dozens of people perhaps out there,
We have 100 unique listeners. Okay,
is that
this is not
so? That's
this
amazing.
actually no. I think we're up to 200. I get to start doing ad reads next time.
Oh, beautiful. I hope that when this comes out, like I can retweet it and people will actually pay attention. I'll have to like engagement farm it with some anime girl picture, but
I'm engagement
um
farming it by having you on. How,
some anime girl picture. Um yeah, a closing
your
address.
serious address.
Yeah, my very serious closing address is oh fuck, I don't know, be nice to each other out there. I'm not going to plug anything. Um but I will say this. No, fuck it. I'll plug myself a little bit,
Do it.
maybe.
Yeah, go for it.
Um I'm a working like front end developer, and uh, you know, occasionally I take on little gigs here and there. And I need to keep my bills paid because I'm not rich, as I said before. So maybe keep me in mind for that if you're out there and you have money to pay developers for things. But like I don't have much else to say other than like I hope everyone is nice to each other, and that this was an entertaining little look into uh, my my persona here.
Well, I will certainly say entertaining for me from the number of times I laughed like a fucking freak in this. I would see my sound waves just start going wild. It was super entertaining and super enlightening. And yeah, just to conclude, I want to say, thank you for taking the time to have a virtual beer with me and share. I know it's difficult in our space sometimes to share for a lot of reasons, certainly share vocally. And that's kind of one of the things that I wanted to do here is just have people have like a place to share and share whatever they wanted to. So I had a great time. So yeah, Burden, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
thank you, and I hope my stupid voice changer didn't like wreck this. But even if it's
Oh,
a
I
bad
mean,
conversation, put it out there. Like just call it the bad episode. You have my
yeah,
full like permission.
I hopefully I will never have a bad episode, but it certainly won't be this one.
This is that one. Anyway, I'd also be happy to talk again if you wanted to. If
Yes,
you
I would
know.
love that. I want to return one. I think I want to do some panels. I want to get like people who I think would play off of each other well. Because then also selfishly, I can kind of just like be nodding, being like, "This is so good. These people are fucking killing
I would be happy to come back on as long as people, you know, would enjoy it as well. And maybe if they wouldn't,
it."
actually,
Actually, it's even better. Fuck those
yeah.
people.
Yeah, fuck them. Punk rock. Anyway, I love you, Kingston.
Hey, I love you too. Thank you for coming on. You really made my day. And to everybody listening, we will be back in 1 week. And as always, thank you so much for your time, and we'll talk to you next time.
Wait.